Yeah. Hello, Roger. Judith. Hello. Just
James, I
wait
was
to.
wondering if you could give us the dates, or if it's on the Buddhist Society website, don't worry, but otherwise when we finish and when we might restart. And
Um. Okay. Right. Yes. In fact, there's been some doubt in my mind, my own mind. So next week we'll certainly be doing it. I'll send a note round after the end of this class then.
okay,
To clarify which the end and start dates will be.
thanks.
Right. Okay. Welcome, Srinamala, Palden, Simon, Teresa, and Duncan. So I had been querying in my mind whether we should do today or tomorrow. Welcome, Charlene. That passage, that short passage from the Visuddhimagga that Palden sent, which I only sent my analysis of it to you a couple of days ago, was it? Um, and then Palden, you mentioned that you weren't able to be here next week, and so could we do it now? Well, let's do it now anyway. There was also and that is closely allied, of course, to the material that Simon sent about this passage um, in the Metta Sutta. Let me just call up the passage in the Metta Sutta first. So I'll start off by sharing screen. Sorry, I did have my, oops. Oh, my desktop mirroring. Stop mirroring. Okay. So restarted. Sorry about this, just a technical glitch at my end. It's the mirroring the iPad to the screen for screen sharing. Oh, I hope we aren't malfunctioning. Yes, welcome, Walker. I hope we aren't malfunctioning because I can't connect the. Yes, welcome, Mariano. I can't connect the iPad to the screen, which is a nuisance. Okay, let's start off with a sharing a document anyway. So screen one. Aha, it's worked. There we are, it's worked. Sorry for the delay, technical glitch. I think we might have overcome it. Share screen. Okay, sorry about that. Are we screen shared with iPad now? Good. Now, the next thing we want to do is to call up the Karaniya Metta Sutta, which should be with you now, is it? And we were looking then at if you can forget which verse it is now. Number 7, of course, number 7. Okay, here we are. Have you all got verse 7 visible
I
to you?
thought it was verse 9 that we were looking at, but you know.
Mariana, you may have been, yes, we were, you are right. However, a new question arose that takes us back to verse 7. A new question. And this arose out of what is actually meant here. And to cut a long story short, and I've shared with you the material that Simon sent me. What does this mean? So the first line is clear enough. Mata yata, just as a mother, Ayusa, Puttam Ayusa Anurake, would protect her only son with her only child, and probably meant to be no gender distinction here, it doesn't matter, would protect her only child with her life. Okay, that bit's clear enough. Evampi, in that same way, bhavaye, one should cultivate, one should develop. This aparimanam manasam, this boundless mind state, sabbabhutesu, for all beings. Now, does that mean, and one is a pretty tall order, the other is kind of seems quite reasonable, at least from my perspective here. The really tall order is that we should in fact have that same feeling towards all beings as a mother has towards her child. Kind of, okay, bit of a tall order, some of you might say.
It's meant to be a tall order, though, isn't it?
Well, is that tall? Okay, I mean, we're asked to do a lot of things that are a tall order in Buddhism, but they are broadly speaking feasible. Broad, at least you can kind of make a start. Say, well, okay, might be a long haul, but it's feasible. This is the doctrinal area I won't quite get into. But does this mean that you should have that same feeling towards all beings? Or, rather more feasible, does it mean that you should have take that same care in cultivating your own metta?
Can I say something quickly?
Yes, please, Mariano.
The first one is, even in Zen Buddhism, the first vow says, sentient beings are numberless, I vow to help them all. Yeah, which is a very tall order, but it is the intention anyway. And
I'll just ask you to pause there for that's of course the Bodhisattva vow of the Mahayana.
Yeah.
We're chanting Shujo Mu Hensei Gan,
Yeah.
that one, yes.
You are an expert.
If we want to chant it in Japanese, I better stop there on the Japanese.
Yeah, and the second one, actually, manasama parimanam, it is not a feeling, it is a discipline. Yeah, so it is not really a tall order, it is about constantly opening up.
Okay, I mean, we are agreeing. The tall order is to have those same feelings that the mother has towards all beings, but if it's to develop that same mindset, the boundlessness of the mindset, that of course we can agree with.
But it doesn't say feelings. Yeah,
it doesn't.
It says attitude, which is different.
Okay, you have rightly corrected me. I accept your correction. It is a manasam, which is an attitude mindset. Yeah. So the question is, are we to treat all beings as the mother treats her son, or are we, however, to use that same diligence, which is the force of the evampi, in simply developing the mindset, developing the attitude?
Could I just come in there, James?
Yes, please, Teresa.
I think we have to look at who's the author of the text and what school of Buddhism they belong to.
Yeah.
So who is the author of this text? Excuse my ignorance, I should know, but...
Oh, I don't know. Here we are studying it. Who's the author of it? I don't actually know. A lot of these authors, just didn't bother to put their names on when they sent them to the publishers.
So we don't know anything about the author of this text.
Actually, I'm gonna. What a sad lapse on my part. I'm going to see if I can find out.
It's in the sutta. It's in the suttas, isn't it? It's in the Sutta Nipata.
Actually, you're right. It is. So, ostensibly, it ought to have been the Buddha, but you get a lot of attributions that may not have been quite strict. Maybe it was somebody who was putting into verse form what the teachings were. But anyway, let me just see if So anyway, the point is that we have this divergent opinion, which was set out in the material I sent on to you that Simon had sent me about what we're actually talking about. I tend to the view that we should apply that same what we're being asked to do is to apply that same just that same diligence, that same carefulness that the mother applies to her only child, that we should apply that to our inner development, rather than that we should in fact be feeling like that towards all beings, which is, I mean, that is okay. That is an over tall order. One is a tall order but doable, and the other is such an over tall order that maybe, unless you are a Mahayana Bodhisattva who's well along the path, it's impossible to do.
Shantideva would disagree.
I'm sorry?
Shantideva would disagree.
Shantideva is of that later school, though, isn't he?
Yeah,
but I don't know, James. It looks like a really straightforward instruction to me, and I think there's just a lot. It reads to me a bit like scholars quibbling over words because it's a tall order and they don't want to have to do it.
Okay, so what's your interpretation, Paladin?
But the reason I sent you the Visuddhimagga bit, it's in the context of you develop metta, then you develop. It's one of the four Brahma Viharas, isn't it? And you get to a point where you're supposed to develop equanimity to the point where you don't care whether it's your life or somebody else's that gets taken. So you really are being asked to just,
Okay,
develop boundless metta towards everybody. So I don't see. It's just an analogy, isn't it? Like.
So what is it that you are straining to do? You're straining to perform. Maybe the dichotomy isn't as great as I had initially thought, and maybe I'm going to try and wriggle out of this very difficult doctrinal position as quickly as I can and stand.
Or maybe it's both. Maybe it's both.
Stand on the firm ground of being a language teacher. Keith.
I think I quite agree. I think it says develop it. It doesn't say we have to achieve it and practice it at all times. It's just we work on developing or cultivating.
Actually, yeah, that's a very nice point, because if you look at the verb that I've highlighted there, bhavaye, it's the optative which stands here as a kind of imperative. Let one develop. So that clearly is a verb. Let one develop what? Well, we've got the clear object of that verb, manasam, so manasam bhavaye. So the instruction here is to develop this attitude. Now, of course, from the successful development of the attitude, certain consequences will flow. Certainly, of course they will. And the better you do it, the better the consequences that will flow. That's no more than to state the obvious. But now let us look at what Paladin sent, which is actually fairly specific, because about some people, certain categories of people, you can be kind of unconcerned. Let's just see what is said in the Buddhaghosa Visuddhimagga, which is then the short passage that I sent to you. When did I send it? Was it 2 days ago? I'm losing track.
By then.
All right, just. Here we are. So this is Buddhaghosa in the Visuddhimagga, the path of purification, which I've just put out here. I've just put the Pali as it appears, and then the kind of breakdown word by word. So I'll just read through this quickly. So Yasmacha Yatamata Dahara Gilana Yobanapatta Sikicha Pasutesu Chatusu Putesu Daharasa Abhivuddhikamahoti Ilanasa Gelanya Panayakama Yobana Patassa Yobana Sampatya Chiratikama Sakitcha pasuta sakisminchi periaye avyavata huti. Tata appamanya viharikena pisabasattesu metadivasena bhavitabam. It doesn't. One of the reasons it might look slightly difficult to follow, if there are any of you having a slight difficulty in following, is because actually all of this is very simple Pali. The problem is here, it's not really a problem, but the point is that we have been used to dealing with verses. Now with the verse, the poet has to confine his point to, a very small number of words, and it's got to be confined within the verse form. And thus confined, of course, it's easier for us to, it's much more easy to grasp bite. Here it's in prose, and the writer is not subject to those restrictions, so he can do a bit of a rambling sentence. This, by the way, this sentence, if you see some of Buddhaghosa's sentence, this will look admirably concise. Buddhaghosa does tend to, wonderful chap, of course, but his Pali style, he does tend to make quite long sentences. So regard this one by Buddhaghosa standards, of one of exemplary brevity and concision. So it's actually yasmacha, and wherefore, and from which, where from. So because of that, yatamata, just as a mother, chatusu puttesu, locative plural, among her 4 sons or children, and then read as below described. And then which types of 4 sons? The dahara is a little child. Gilana means sick. Yobanapatta, youth attained, one who is kind of in the the bloom of youth. And Sakitcha pasuta, but the esu here is the locative plural ending. You've got a compound noun, all these 4 types of children. Of course, you decline only the final one because it's a compound. That's why it's in the locative plural to apply to them all. So Sakitcha pasutesu, own business involved. Remember, in fact, in the Metta Sutta, we have the mantra be appakicho, in Sanskrit, alpakritya, of few tasks. So, in connection with these 4 categories of children, the child, the sick, the youth, and one who's already engaged in his own affairs, which I think we can understand that to mean he's already, got married, set up his own household, free and independent. So, Daharasa for the child, Gelanya apanayana kama. She is sickness removing, desiring. So kama, desire, if you put it as the final member of a compound, it makes it an adjective meaning having a desire for. Nayana means leading, apanayana means leading off, leading away, and therefore removing. Gelanya, sickness removing desire. In other words, she has this desire for the removal of the sickness. That's for the. Sorry, she is. I missed this line. Daharasa, for the child, she's abhibuddhikama. Roti, she is abhibuddhikama, growing up. She is desirous of the abhibuddhi, of the growth, daharasa, of that child. Gilanasa, of the sick one, or for the sick one. Kama, desirous of. Gelanya apanayana, of the removal of the sickness. And this nayana, from a root ni, meaning to lead. The vinaya, by the way, vinaya, leading away. Apanaya, vinaya, mean kind of the same thing. Vinaya is more common. The Vinaya meaning the rules of discipline. The actual underlying idea of that is that it leads you away or keeps you away from wrongdoing. So that's the actual underlying meaning of the Vinaya. So here we've got the Apan and Vinaya, Apanaya, Apanayana, two alternatives meaning the same thing. So Apanayana, leading away from the root ni. So she's desirous of removing the sickness of the sick one. Yobbana patassa. In Sanskrit, that's the praptassa. So yobbana is yauvana in Sanskrit, from yuva, meaning youth. Yobbana is gioventù in Italian. Juvenile, gioventù, yauvana, yobbana. So yauvana Sanskrit, yobbana Pali.
Juventus.
So Juventus. Of course, you use the Latin word, not the Italian word. Sorry, Juventus. That's that very calm and peaceful football team, isn't it? Sorry, I was accidentally translating from Latin to Juventus. You're right. So Juventus, modern Italian Gioventù. Is that right, Gioventù? Yobbana is that same word, from which we have juvenile and via a different strand to young and youth. So Yobbana patassa, for the youth attained, for the one who's reached the stage of being a youth. She is she's chiratitikama, desirous of the long standing. Chira as an adjective can just mean long in the sense of a long time, and also used as a noun just means a long length of time. And we often see that if somebody has recently, the Buddha had recently departed and the monks began a conversation, he was achiram, not long gone, achiram. Here, chira, titi is stiti, meaning standing, remaining. Chira titikama, she is literally long-standing desirous, or desirous that something should remain a long time. Desirous of what? Remaining a long time? Yobbana sampatya, the sampati, the attainment of youth. So she is desire for the one who is in the bloom of youth. She is desirous that the attainments, the wealth of youth, should last for a long time. Sakitcha pasuta, pasuta, Sanskrit prasita literally means tied up, just as we use in modern English. You're tied up, you're busy with something. So pasuta, so it means engaged, but literally tied up. Sakitcha swakritcha, one's own business. If he's fully engaged in his own business, or this is the genitive here, for the one who is fully engaged in his own affairs, in his own business. Vyavatahuti, she's unconcerned. Not only unconcerned, but kisminchi pariyaye, that suggests in whatever way. Tata, so in other words, Shanti, not Shantideva, Buddhaghosa appears to be telling us here that it's all right to have actually different attitudes, different feelings towards different categories of people. In other words, if somebody is getting on fine, busy with their own affairs, it's all right to be unconcerned with them. If they're in the flower of youth, well, then for her own child in the flower of youth, she wants to be desirous, long may it last. So,
can I ask?
Can I have a slightly different interpretation of that, James?
Please do, Paladin. Goodness me, this is an entire rabbit warren we're getting into.
Isn't it? So I think what Buddhaghosa's talking about. Sorry, what? Sorry, my husband's here. Sorry, James.
Can I, in the meantime, ask a very quick one?
Please do, Mariano.
Pariaye. Do I see a E for movement there? A root. Pari E.
Oh, pariaya means literally going around.
All right.
And that means a way of doing something, or just a manner of doing something. Literally means going around.
Thank you.
I'm glad you raised that. In the Pali scriptures, when you do a repeat of something and they don't repeat the words, they just write e instead, meaning that you get into, and the Buddha said so and so to the monks. Okay, fine. And then somebody comes and said to the monks, what did the Buddha just say? And in the translation, it'll often be said, well, and he repeated what the Buddha said. But in the original Pali scripture, word for word, there will be a repeat of what was said. And they go off and tell somebody else. In the translation, you'll often see, and they tell that other person what the Buddha said. But in the original Pali scripture, and they said, and again, a repeat for a repeat. So to avoid these repetitions, even in the Pali text, you have this kind of shortened form, be, meaning, okay, repeat what's been said before. The be is an abbreviation for pariaya, means going around. In other words, go round, go back and repeat what you had before, rather than repeating everything here. It was probably it was a perfectly legitimate thing, because everything had to be laboriously handwritten, and often the writing materials are not cheap either. So that was a legitimate way of doing it. So be, so that's from pariaya, literally going around. So,
sorry,
okay,
James.
are you free of the trammels of married life again?
I am, thank you. Sorry about that. Bad timing. So I was
And that must have been really important what your husband came to tell you, because in the entire time, I do not recall that you've been with these classes, which is some years now, Paladin. I do not recall any previous occasion when you've broken off to talk to your husband.
He was looking for my phone. I've no idea why he wants my phone, but never mind. So I was just, the reason I pulled this passage out was because we're doing the Metta Sutta, which is the first of the 4 Brahma Viharas. So he was extending the metta between these 4 different types of children. So the metta is what you feel for a young child who needs protection, and then you've got for the sick child, you feel a kind of compassion and wish for them to get well.
Yeah.
For the one in the bloom of youth, that's the sympathetic joy you feel, you rejoice in their good fortune. And then for the one caught up in his own affairs and doing very nicely, you kind of feel equanimity because you don't have to worry anymore. So my take on it in relation to the Metta Sutta is, it's a metaphor for your relationship to other beings, but it's their spiritual welfare rather than just wanting them to be well and look after their physical welfare. So you're protecting, you feel a sense of protectiveness towards your child so that it grows up and becomes an adult concerned with its own affairs that you can feel equanimity towards. So it's kind of saying you should feel a boundless sense of benevolent goodwill for the spiritual welfare, not just of a few people, but for all beings.
I think there's a lot in what you say, yes.
So the child needs protection because it's not wise enough to look after itself. It needs protecting so that it grows up and achieves its potential. So it's saying, in my take on it anyway, like towards all beings, you need to feel this same sense of protectiveness, not so much towards their material welfare and sacrificing your life for that, but to concerned with their helping them to achieve spiritual attainment, grow up as spiritually, so to speak. Does that make sense?
It does actually, yes. Oh, goodness sake, please, Christine, come in.
Just a simple thought thrown in here. I thought that poetry, the suttas, could hold 2 ideas in the mind at one time. And this seems to be a situation where there are 2 possible interpretations. And can we not allow something for each of them?
Oh, sure. I mean, with again and again, I mean, as you're entirely right, we come across so many occasions where even where the language seems to be plain, that there's more than one interpretation, and of course very often, you know, the language itself is almost deliberately ambiguous, there can be an argument which is meant. Well, more often than not, both are meant at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm certainly with you there.
Yeah, and I guess that's where I sort of started off. Although I think I took the first meaning as in everybody, but it is looking at a state of mind also.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my thought.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So Appamanya Viharikena Pi. The Pi often is shortened in Sanskrit, it's Api, which often means even, but it's often used as just an infill enclitic, so or just can sometimes mean just so, even so. Appamanya viharikenapi. So vihara means abiding. It started off life vihara as just a verbal noun describing the act of living or abiding somewhere. And by extension, it came to mean the place where the monks abide, therefore, vihara meaning a monastery. So, in this sense, we now have the ending from vihara, viharika, which just makes a noun out of it, makes a concrete noun out of the verbal noun. So, the viharika, a person who abides. So, and this is the instrumental, by one who abides, appamanya, in the immeasurable, bhavitabam. It's given in the Pali text as bhavitabam, but I would have been happier if it had a long R, the bhavitabam, for bhaveti, bhavana, and the cultivation. It could be a textual error. I've repeated the short R because that's how it appears in the text I have. But as I said, I've been happy with a longer R, with a long R. So is to be practiced, cultivated, sabba sutesu, got that, sabba saptesu, among all beings. Remember the sattva, with the ra there in Sanskrit. Sattva is a being, as in bodhisattva. That same one is a satta in Pali. Metta adivasena. The vasa, Sanskrit vasha, means power, or influence or control. Remember, there are essentially two words, there are more than two words, but the most common words are bala and vasa. In Sanskrit, the same, but vasha, bala vasha. Bala, mark well the important difference between those two words. The bala is like your internal strength. Vasha is like you're under the power control of somebody else. So in Sanskrit, if you're paravasha, you are other vasha, meaning under the control of another person. You want a free agent. But here it's used in a good sense, but you hear metadivasena, by one who is under the control or acting under the power of metta. So vasa here is used in a good sense, one whose actions and mind are guided by metta. By one who dwells in the immeasurability. These things, or the above states, are bhavitabam, to be cultivated. I just want to mention one thing. This patta, you'll come across it quite a lot. I'm just going to give you iPad. iPad. There we are. This is from a very important root up, meaning to get or to obtain. It's frequently used with the prefix pra plus up. So without any change of meaning, we just most commonly find that root with that prefix. So prapta in Sanskrit means obtained, and it's used in two ways. It's used as something that has been got or obtained, or it can apply to the person who has done the obtaining. And that's why in this case, the yobanapatta, youth obtained, one who has got, or one who has reached that stage of youth. And the prapta, as we'd expect, simply becomes patta in Pali. It turns up in Latin as an op. And if you are opulens, which in modern English would be opulent, rich, wealthy, it's from that same root. You have obtained much. So that will help you to remember this root up.
Why the double P, James? Is it because of the pra?
Yoganapatassa. Yeah. Sorry, let me. It's because of the preceding short vowel. So I'm writing it in Sanskrit first. Yovana prapta, youth obtained, one who has obtained youth, or one who has now reached the stage of youth. And that in Pali, now because the Sanskrit has a pr there, standing on its own, that would just, then the r drops out, and that just becomes, so prapta just becomes patta in Pali. But because of the preceding short vowel, the double P comes back. So I think it's because of this residual linguistic memory that it's a double consonant. So and you feel that you want to hold the short a but make the syllable heavy. Yovana prapta. Sorry, yovana prapta, yovana patta. This kind of linguistic memory that it actually wants to make this double consonant, wants to make the preceding syllable heavy. Is that clear? So you very often find that you have a word that begins with a single. You can never have a double consonant, of course, at the beginning of a word. You can only double a consonant if there's a preceding vowel. But you find that the preceding vowel then brings back that memory, as it were, of the doubling that it had in Sanskrit.
James, can I chip in on a couple of other things?
Yes, please do, Roger.
The immeasurable states, are those the jhanas, do you think, are being referred to?
Because the immeasurable. Well, what are is it the same as the Brahma Viharas? Is that the immeasurables?
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think it is.
I just wondered if it was a sort of reference to the jhanas, which it said can be attained through metabhavana.
I ought to know these things by heart, but so often I forget. I think it refers to the four Brahma Viharas, okay. Also the four immeasurables.
Okay. One other thing, I mean, I just say I'm really a bit surprised that one should be unconcerned or equanimous about a sort of grown-up child who's got his or her own interests. I mean, I've got grown-up children, and one remains concerned, hopefully, and wishing them well. That really surprises me, actually.
Okay, I think that's a perfectly good point. I mean, I too have children ranging from the age of 53 downwards.
Equanimity is not indifference, is it?
So equanimity is not indifference. Avyapata, okay. Sorry, I put in unconcerned. I meant it is unconcerned. I don't think, yeah, I mean, Paladin's right. I don't think it means that you can't be bothered, not interested. I think in fact, it's from the Sanskrit avyaprata, which means not actively engaged in doing something. In other words, not. I mean, I feel sure that you're the same, Rod. You may be highly concerned with the welfare of your children of whatever age and how well they're doing. That's normal. But you aren't constantly banging at them and telling them how to do it. If you see they're doing it, they get on perfectly well on their own. I think it's that you're not kind of actively at them. I think we've got to interpret here.
Even equanimity doesn't seem like appropriate to me. Anyway, we could probably talk about this for the rest of the day.
We could indeed. On the question of equanimity, I think that equanimity is, as in so many of these things, once you start examining it, just going to turn the page here. So equanimity, which in Pali is upekka, most commonly translated as equanimity. If you look at the word equanimity, it's from equus, equal, and animus meaning mind. It means don't mind one way or the other. You know, you don't prefer one or the other. And it almost has an overtone of don't care, whatever. But
well, that just doesn't seem appropriate to me.
It's not appropriate. But let's just look at this word upekka here. Hang on, why is that happening? Oh, sorry. Go to the entire. Come on back. Oh, goodness me. Sorry, I think I cancelled the connection. Should be back in a moment. There we are, upekka. Now, analyze the word. If you see a look of relief coming onto my face now, because I'm back onto much firmer ground, so apart from straying into these doctrinal areas, and I'm now back in firm linguistics here. So there is the Sanskrit or the Vedic root iksh, meaning to look. So this iksh, the form of it got mangled a bit as it came between, went through the languages. You could oculum, and in Latin occhio in modern Italian, meaning looking, meaning the eye, and that same word came as, for example, Augen in German, but eye is spelled EYE, the seeing eye in English, but it's all ultimately from that same root. So, and it makes a verbal noun, iksha, which just means looking or seeing. So iksha is a verbal noun from iksh. So upa means up or upwards, but it can also mean from above. So upa iksha, which by sandhi becomes upeksha, up seeing means seeing from above, is the literal meaning of it. And so the Sanskrit upeksha becomes by regular, oh, come on. Oh, yeah. Becomes by regular phonetic mutation upekka in Pali. So upekka literally means, if you're analyzing linguistics, it means seeing from above. And you will find in the literature, examples given of, for example, somebody being in the crowded marketplace in the middle of the shouting, the strife, the bargaining, the quarrelling, the talking of the market. He goes up the hill, the adjacent hill, and looks down upon the village and looks down on the market square from above. He can see everything, but his horizon is much broadened now. He's got a much wider field of view. The idea of, you can almost say it's like the English phrase, something's in your face. Something's in your face. You can't see anything else. But with the upekkha, you get up, you take the broader view, the upekkha, seeing things from above, the wider horizon. So it's not exactly equanimity, but it's seeing from above, from a very broad perspective. I find that's a more helpful way of looking at what the meaning of upekkha is.
If I can say something there, the way I take it is also an invitation to see that, life wants you to look after your children while they need your help. But then, there is the letting go as well. They are the children of life itself. They are not your children.
Yeah.
So there is that invitation later on to step back and let it be.
Indeed so. Echoes of Khalil Gibran's Prophet there, aren't there? Yes, yeah. So there we are. The one last thing to look at, is the apramanya. Sorry. Our root ma, to measure. The other one's me in Greek. We get metron, measure. The metron simply means a measurement in Greek, from which we get our English word meter, the measurement of length. Prama probably means pretty much the same thing, measuring out or doing measurement. So you can make a verbal noun, pramana, meaning measurement. Looking at Sanskrit here. So apramana means without measurement, therefore so pramana is a noun meaning the act of measuring or a measure. Apramana now becomes an adjective meaning without measure, beyond measure, or immeasurable.
James, I've just quickly looked it up. It is the Brahmaviharas.
Jolly good, right. Thank you very much, Roger. Glad I got that right. So apamana, Sanskrit, apamana, Pali, immeasurable. And immeasurability, you make an abstract noun out of it, is apramanya, and that's the one that becomes here that we have in our Pali text, apamanya. That's where I'm highlighting that, apamanya. Pali just lengthens the final R there. So the apamanya means therefore the immeasurability, or the quality of being immeasurable. And that's why the apamanya viharikena, by one who abides in immeasurability, or just the immeasurables, the immeasurable states.
I had a thought about Roger's point, James, which is just that although it's a metaphor about a mother's relationship to her children, it would probably have been written by whoever wrote it down by a childless monk. Therefore, they might have rather underestimated how an actual parent might feel about their actual grown-up child.
It's funny, I was having the same thought. I mean, I think we can probably assume, maybe not, that Buddhaghosa never had a grown-up child.
Probably not one that he would admit to.
Yeah.
Oh no, I mean, okay, it was perfectly honourable back in those days to want, to get married, have children. Once you're a certain age, you're beyond the responsibility, then become a monk. But I'm not sure, in fact, whether in Buddhaghosa's particular case, whether it's recorded whether he did or not.
Even if he did, he was a monk, wasn't he? And even if he did, he wouldn't have been responsible for bringing it up. So maybe lack of experience about parenthood.
That's an interesting speculation that you've raised there, Paladin, but maybe he had become very skilled at a certain practice, which I shall describe to you as known as Parakaya Pravesha, in Sanskrit, Parakaya Pravesha.
Are you writing, James?
Sorry, yeah. The para other, kaya pravesha, literally entering into the body of another, the idea being that you can, by a kind of psychic transference, be experiencing the same thing that that other person is putting yourself in the position of another, but by a particular form of psychic power, actually, as it were, plugging directly and sticking a mental USB cable right into their head, so you've got a direct imaging into your own mind of what's going on. What's going on within that other person. So this is pure speculation. There's no doctrinal foundation for this, but there was this practice known as, in Sanskrit, parakaya pravesha, literally other body entering, and maybe Buddha Ghosa was advanced enough to have felt exactly how the mother would have felt for her children. And
I don't know. There's somewhere else, and I'm sure it's somewhere else in Buddhaghosa where he talks about equanimity as being a state where if you were set upon by a band of thieves, you would be completely neutral as to whether it was yourself, your child, or a complete stranger that was killed. It's something like that, which clearly isn't how any real parent would feel about their actual child, I don't think.
No, it's not.
But then people were being, advised to give up family life and become monks and nuns. So
yeah, actually,
they were sort of being told not to have those preferences and strong feelings one way or another, which is where the metaphor starts to fall down a bit.
Do you know, it's interesting you should mention that, because I've just remembered now, I must have been about, I don't know, 12 or 13 or something, and I'd just been brought up as a Roman Catholic, just been to Mass with my parents, and there was all this, and one of the letters of epistles of St. Paul about, you can be beaten and spat upon, and yet you will give blessings to them, beaten upon and robbed, and I remember my father muttering, as we left the church, muttering so that none of the priests would hear, it's all very well for St. Paul to write that, but did he have any children of his own? What would he have done if he'd seen somebody do it? I thought it was a very good point. Simon, yes. Please.
Sorry, it's about as contextual as it can get, nothing to do with the grammar, but there's a nice story in my family about years and years ago when I was with my toddler son and we were visiting a National Trust property, and I heard a mother very, very distraught and screaming because her child had wandered into traffic. And so, full of universal love and metta and loving kindness, I just dashed forward and saved this child's life. My wife pointed out that I'd left our toddler son in exactly the same danger. She said that as a mother, she would have secured our child first and foremost like a tigress. And it's only an idiot man who could have this universal love as opposed to a focused, relentless interest in her own offspring. So I thought I'd just throw that one in. Whether it's true or not in this particular case, I don't know. But I suppose with regard to the context of the sutta, what initially made me suspicious about the maternal love bit is the fact that the love that we're required to have is universal, omitting none, anavasesa.
Anavasesa, omitting none, yeah.
Whereas the mother's love is specific and only for that particular child. That's another interesting angle to it.
And there is also the point that, the equanimity, having children and so on, that we are capable of, it is not the ultimate one. It is the attachment is always born out of not seeing things clearly as they are. Yeah. So, it is a tall order to us, but
it's what we have to strive for. It is however noble,
because
however
we're
lofty
still
the goal.
attached.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, elsewhere, we're asked to have the same form of loving kindness and equanimity to people if they were to saw us apart with a double-handed saw. So it doesn't get much more high flown than that, really. So yeah, I think it's an aspiration rather than a recommendation to do it here and now. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that really brings me back to the mutterings of my father after he'd left the church. If you're really very, very highly advanced, you might consent to be sawn apart with your double-handed saw, one man at each end, like a lumberjack saw. But then, if you witness that happening to one of your children, then even Buddha Gosam, maybe even Shanti Dev would say, in those circumstances, you may do what is necessary to stop these evil people doing what they're doing. But do it with a metaful approach, you see. You may have to kill them, but you kill them with metta. Oh.
James, sorry, before we leave it, this parakaya pravesha,
yes,
it's like an extreme form of empathy, it sounds to me like.
It is an extreme form of...
I was at this meeting about altruism, and altruism, the root of it seems to be empathy, and that people like sociopaths arguably haven't got that empathy and then exhibit altruism.
Well, as far as I've been able to understand this, the parakaya pravesha, it is a specific form of psychic power that could be developed enable you actually not just have empathy towards them, but actually to be directly experiencing. That's my understanding of this. Is from the from Hinduism rather than Buddhism. I haven't seen this expression used among the Hindus. So I just need to close the door here. I've got builders in the house. Sorry, the builders and their tools have jammed the relevant doors open, so I don't know if you can hear the noise, just the background noise of tools. Actually, that's one of the things with this kind of kit, because it's quite a sensitive mouthpiece. It just picks up what's said a few inches away, so you can't hear the dreadful racket that the builders are making in the next room. So yes, as I was saying, I think that this is a specific psychic power, parakaya pravesh, going beyond empathy to actually the ability to the ability to directly experience what somebody else is experiencing. So, do we revert to the text we were nominally on? Was there any more arising out of that before we move on?
Just that Buddha Ghost does a whole chapter in that section that you went through, James. It's just a really small section of a whole chapter on the 4 Brahma Viharas. So I haven't read them all, but I haven't read all of it. But there's quite a lot of detail into what it means in terms of how it relates to other aspects of practicing. So if we don't understand the metaphor, there's a lot in there to look at.
There is a lot there to look at. I've for those who are interested, I mean, it's all downloadable. So this actually I've analysed part of it, but this is something that runs to, yes, page this runs, including annotation, some annotations, 76 solid pages from this part of the Visuddhimagga. I've only analysed a very small part of it. So page after page after page after page of Pali. Yes, Visuddhimagga. I don't know how many of you know. It's a pretty thick book. It runs into about 900 or something like that pages in the Pali text, Jnanamoli's translation, published by the Pali Text Society and others.
It's really useful though, because there's a lot of detail into why you do a particular practice, what it means, what the near and far enemies are, where it fits in, what it's counteracting. I mean, it's if you can bear to work through it, it's really interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean the amount of detail is enormous. If anybody now offered that kind of thing as a new work to a publisher, would be rejected. Nobody's going to buy that. It's just too detailed. But since it was Buddhaghosa, the venerable Buddhaghosa, it has become of course widely accepted. But you're right, and the amount of detail is vast. You might almost think he was a lawyer. Oh, you're off, are you, Mariano? Okay, see you then. Thanks. Bye. Right, so back to, so we're just going to do a recap, if I'm right, of the Metta Sutta verse 8. Unless there's anything more that anyone wanted to say on this passage we've just done. And Charlene, I'm talking particularly, don't worry too much about this is a little bit unusual, going into a difficult bit of text and going into this kind of discussion of it. Normally we're much more anchored to a text in which I've done a detailed analysis. So don't be too put off by this. We do it occasionally, but not the whole time.
Have you added more detail to the version you sent around, James? Because there seems to be more in what's on the screen than I had in my version of it. I don't know.
Sorry, you talking about the thing I've got on the shared screen now?
If you scroll down the bit at the bottom with the
I just there was
okay.
I was just for a moment puzzled by this word avyavata, and then the p became a v in the Pali. That was just a brief note, so I didn't forget next time I came back to it.
Okay, thanks for doing that.
Okay then, so we're now back to the oops, come on. Metta Sutta. Okay, right. So we did do this last time. So it's just a recap. I think so. Mittancha sabbalokasmin manasam bhavaye aparimanam uddham madhocha tiriyancha asambadham averam asapattam. So this is just for a recap. Firstly, is there anyone here who didn't get a chance to recite? I think some people recited last time. Anyone who didn't get a chance to recite it last time and would like to do so now? I can't remember who it was who didn't. So either that or that, and any questions or comments, please say. Okay then, so we can move on then, and the next one is moving on to the Dhammapada, chapter 9, verse 2. Let's find it. So verse 1 we did when we were previously on the Dhammapada. Oh, I got that right. Yes, so chapter 9, then verse 2, Dhammapada. So, papanche puriso kaira nanang kaira punam natam hi chandang kairatha dukho papassa uchayo. So, this che then, meaning if, in Sanskrit it's chet with a T on the end, of Pali just che. And remember, it's always an enclitic. It can never begin a sentence. So it's always tacked onto the end of another word. You do have if you want to, you do have another word, yadi, meaning if, same in Sanskrit and Pali. So yadi, that can begin a sentence. So this sentence could equally read, yadi papang kaira, if one were to commit an evil, or papanche kaira, if one were to commit an evil. Puriso, puriso means a person. So if a person is to commit an evil, so it's almost saying, well, if it's going to happen anyway, it's more like in a resigned kind of way, saying, okay, it's bound to happen occasionally. There's a papa that an evil is being done. And sort of saying, okay, if we accept that it's going to happen occasionally, if it happens, nanang kayara punapunam. Do not do it repeatedly. Do not do it again and again. This kayara is just one of from the root kri, meaning to do, which is a bit of an irregular verb. This is one of the optative forms of it. So let one not do it. So papanche purisu kaira, if one is to commit a papa, any kind of sin, wrong, evil, nanang kaira punapunam. Nang is the alternative form, less common alternative form, simply tam, meaning it. So nanang kaira, natang kaira. They alternate, but with tam as being the more common form. So let one not do it. Punapunam. Again and again. It's puna, puna, punam. When you put them together, punam, again and again. You've got kayirada as an optative form, and kayirata is an alternative optative form. So na tamhi chandam kayirata. Na kayirata means let one not make. Na kayirata. Let one not generate or create a chanda, meaning a positive desire to do it. Tamhi is the locative form. So literally, let one not generate nakaira chandam, a desire in it. So in other words, don't do it repeatedly. Nanankaira punapunam, let one not do it repeatedly. Natamhi chandam kairata, let one not create a desire for it. Simon, please.
Yeah, last week I raised the possibility that kairata could be the plural, so optative second person plural, in the sense of don't you lot do that, or you lot should not do that. And I'm wondering, did you rule that out? As it's not the case.
No, I didn't. Sorry. You find in this optative form the ata. Actually, sorry, I should have mentioned it. It can equally well be both. You've got the same verb, the same form, actually covering both. So yeah, you're right to raise that. This could also read as a plural imperative. In Sanskrit, that word, that the ambiguity wouldn't arise, but in Pali it can. And I'm just going to I'm going to double check what I've said there and come back just in case I'm saying something silly. But I've just made a note to double check. So
I think it would be the optative rather than the imperative, which would be, I think, would be itta rather than ata. And the ata is often an optative second person plural. So
it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, may you not do it. Okay, I think I'm more or less this all the variegations of this verb, which is slightly irregular in Sanskrit, but even more irregular in Pali. I think I'd better cease to have any pretense that I've got all of the possible forms of that irregular verb in my head. I don't. So I'm just going to have to check that that I haven't misled you here. So Natami Chandam Kairat, I do not make or let one not make. Chandam, a desire. Tamhi, literally in it, means don't generate a desire for it. In other words, you've got to get a mental, permanent mental state of that's what you want. Dukkho papasa ucchayo. Dukkho, remember this word dukkha. Dukkha, recall, is both a noun, a neuter noun, dukkham, meaning suffering. It's also an adjective, causing suffering. It's like the pain and painful, suffering, causative of suffering. Here, it's used as an adjective. So the uchchayo, the uchchaya is the heaping up, the accumulation. So the accumulation, meaning here the results of the karmic accumulation of papa, the papasa uchayo, the heaping up of papa, meaning of course the karmic results of the heaping up of an accumulation of evil deeds, that uchayo, that accumulation is dukkho, it is painful. Now, this uchaya, cool iPad again. It's from the root chi, which simply means to heap up or to accumulate. And we know that one of the, you've got this virtue, one of the bujjhanga, the factors of enlightenment, is that dhamma vichaya. So vichaya, dhamma vichaya is often translated as the investigation of states. In other words, you're in a particular state, particularly if it's a negative state like anger or ill will, then the idea is that you do a vichaya, you do an analysis of it, you see what it's made of, to remove its power over you. But if you look at what the word, actually look into the word here, chaya is accumulation, and vichaya is actually deconstruct, taking something apart, unheaping it. You've got a mass, a heap of something, and you're pulling it apart to see what it's made of. That is the idea of the vichaya. And similarly, heaping up, the prefix utchaya, which by Santi, both Sanskrit and Pali, is uchchaya. So uchchaya, heaping up, piling up, accumulation, and that's the word that we've got here, the uchchayo, now the nominative form. So dukkho papasta uchchayo, painful or causative of dukkha, is the uchchayo, the accumulation, the piling up of papa, of evil. So papanche puriso kaira nanang kaira punap punam. Natam hi chandang kairata dukkho papasa uchayo. So what we'll do then, because we've just gone beyond one, so we'll come back to this verse and do a recap and recitations of this verse when we meet next time. And I will just double check my slightly shaky knowledge on this slippery ending ata. Okay, maybe it's wrong of me to accuse the ending of being slippery. My own slippery little mind that hasn't fully retained it with that hard accuracy that I would have liked, and that you deserve from me. So thank you very much then, and see some of you in 3/4 of an hour, and the rest of you in a week, hopefully. Okay, thank you then. Thanks.
Thanks, James.
Oh, sorry, Charlene, did you just?
Yes, I just had one question.
Yeah, please,
when I
Charlene.
was going through the videos, the YouTube videos on this verse, I think they were saying that this verse was. I know that you had said that today's lesson would be on verses 3 and 4, but that in the video, you kind of put together verses 2 and 3 because you were saying there was a repetition in some of the
I wonder
meanings
if
were very similar.
Yeah, I can answer that immediately. Okay, so if we look at verse 3, this verse follows the pattern of previous 192. That's the one we've just been looking at this moment, substituting punya and sukha for papa and dukkha and removing the na. So 2 and 3. That's why I didn't do a full analysis of 3 because it was simply the same but for the substitution. Did I lump together 3 and 4?
Yeah, you said for today it would be 3 and 4. So I'm just wondering now,
then if I did that, that was an evident mistake because 4 is
something different.
Something different. Okay, 4 and 5. Maybe I just mistyped. Sorry about that. Let me double check that because clearly 2 and 3 go together because they are identical apart from the change of just a limited number of words. 4 and 5 again are what have I said under 5? Oh yes, so 5 is identical with 4, but with Bhadra and Papa transpose. So sorry about that, my mistake. 2 and 3 go together, and 4 and 5 go together. So if you've seen me saying 3 and 4 go together, that was a simple. That is probably a typing error on my part. That's why I have to be doubly and trebly careful if I'm doing a bank transfer using my computer. Okay, there we are then. Thank you for pointing that out, Charlene. I will rectify it if it's in a rectifiable state. And see you again either next week or a little bit later for the Sanskrit. Okay, thanks then. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye then. Bye, everybody.